I would consider it as an A market, an A plus market.
Yeah. What can you pay them and still cash flow? It's worth looking at.
Housing, like it's one commodity that I don't like. We have a crisis now. We're
Housing's
going to have a
needed,
crisis
yeah.
next year. We're going to have a crisis the year after. There's more people coming into the country.
Yeah.
Like my recommendation is
they followed that path.
You inflated the U.S. market single-handedly.
I do have an influence on the market.
Well,
high level, what is it?
Yeah, let's start by just going into it. So,
welcome back to REI Hot Seat. I've got Jacob Campanera with me again, and we're going to talk about a 14-unit building.
Right on.
Yeah, so
let's do it.
Kitchener, Ontario. Obviously, from a rental standpoint, if you're an owner in Kitchener, you probably like it, with the exception of if you're trying to buy it in today's market, for the most part. Although deals are coming around.
Yep.
We've been talking about this. There's a lot of deals to be had these days because of a number of reasons. And today's deal is interesting because of the seller literally advertising that they're offering seller financing.
Yeah.
So
and it's kind of a can you go too far story, right? Or we'll get into it. But
so highlight for this episode is cash flow, big cash flow in 2023 Ontario. Possible with this deal, depending on what you can get the seller to agree to.
Yeah.
But let's run through the numbers. So,
and let's just start by
high level. What is it?
Yeah, let's start by just going into it. So first off, as Andrew mentioned, it's in Kitchener. So Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, kind of Tri-City. For anybody that doesn't know, is the tech hub of Ontario. Lots of employment there, lots of jobs on the highway.
Schools there, it's right on the highway. So
you have Laurier as well as Waterloo universities. So all around, I would consider it as an A market, an A plus market.
Yeah.
Right. When it comes to secondary, it's obviously not Toronto, but outside of Toronto, it's probably one of the best markets to invest in. Yeah.
As far as it's diverse, it's super close to so many things, including Toronto. Like you could commute into Toronto.
Yeah, you can, right? Because you're right on the highway there. You're right on the main artery right through Ontario. So, as we always talk about on the show, you want to look at the micro, come down to the macro, right? So right now we're talking about location. The other way around. Yeah. So I just want to start with that. So that's the city we're looking at. Now let's talk about the neighborhood, building, all of that. So this building is Andrew, how many units is it?
14
unit.
And if I had to summarize what it looks like, I mean, it's a dated looking building from the outside.
Yeah, brick and concrete, right? Purpose built, but it was probably, I would say, 70s build.
70s build. 70s. So the outside's still got that, that older vibe. It's by no means a modern building, but the inside looks like there's been some renovations, like from the pictures I saw. Now, of course, there might be units that aren't as nice.
Of course, I'm sure there are.
Yeah. But so it looks like there's some promise to the building. The big, let's start with why would a seller come out and offer a vendor take back mortgage of 75% loan to value for the full purchase here? Why would a seller offer such a thing in today's market?
Yeah, and we spoke about that in a couple previous episodes. Right? VTBs are one of our favorite topics.
It's a toolkit.
Yeah. And so I can refer back to a building that we talked about. We did an episode when it was unavailable, and then we actually did an episode recapping how we purchased it afterwards.
Okay.
So I listed it, we sold it, we put a deal together, and that's where we're at.
And refresh, what was the VTB term on that?
That was a 75% VTB.
Okay, so that one worked the same way.
Yep. 4-year term, I believe.
Yeah.
And basically, we just kept dropping the interest rate until it started to cash flow. But anyway, so coming back to this building, this is a great example of, and we've talked about this before. Can you have a compressed cap rate? Can you make sense of a compressed cap rate if you give the right VTB? Right.
And I think that potentially you can, but every deal needs to be looked at as its own individual micro deal. So the key thing here is there's how do you make this deal work? And in the how, you have different levers you can pull on. You can pull on the interest rate. You can pull on the purchase price. You can pull on the revenue that property makes. I mean, sometimes you're restricted there. And the one thing with this one, if you look at my screen right now, you'll see the current rent roll for this building. I mean, we've got a 3-bed rented at less than $1,100.
Yeah.
We've got a 1-bed at $846. Another 2-bed at, they're all around $1,000.
And so this leads me to my question, which is, Okay, with the right VTB, maybe you can get the deal to work, but is the deal overpriced?
And we're going to get to that.
That's the key question.
And we're going to get to that.
Of this podcast.
Yes. How do you assess? Was you ultimately have to put a dollar value on what is that VTB worth? And we're going to run through some scenarios here. But the market rent, theoretically, I went through. So basically, the seller package they provided, they showed $2,000 on these vacant units. So you've got a 2-bedroom. I highlighted it in yellow, and I just put a current rent. But these yellow highlights are vacant right now. But so theoretically, that's what the realtor is saying market rent is. $2,000 for a 2-bedroom makes sense. I feel like that's not an unreasonable expectation.
Even more than that,
potentially even more. Yeah. So, but leaving that in as conservative, I just went ahead and subbed it in for the rest of the property and came up with a $27,000 market rent. I think that's a conservative or a reasonable estimate. So we're about $10,000 off, assuming you fill the 4 vacancies. And this top one is actually. They're kicking the tenant out right now, I guess, for non-payment or something. So, but anyways, so let's assume that's vacant, and that's part of the due diligence process. But okay, so $17,000 in income works out to be $214 on the year. You look at some of these numbers here, like the property taxes on this building are $30,000. It's not a cheap property tax bill. They're getting a great deal on insurance. I might even budget a bit more than what they posted. Their utilities are atrocious. $37,000 for electric, water, and gas. So is there room to, on the new ones, maybe throw in a mini split, separate heat? I don't know if they must not have separate meters.
No, or separate water. Yeah. Right?
Can they separate electric?
Yeah, separate electric. Now, all of these things come with, okay, so let's walk through those, actually. That's a great little topic. So, we can always talk about separate hydro, right? So if a building doesn't have separate hydro, it's doable, but is it feasible, right? And so I went through a building recently with an electrician client of mine, very good client, but he's an electrician in the trade for many years, and we go through these buildings. I actually lean on him when it comes to this, right? I say, hey, that's great. I say, what would you do here, right? And we've been through a building where it was all 1 meter, and it was advertised in the listing or in the paperwork. It wasn't on the market, and they were saying, oh, you can sub-meter, and then you're going to be saving because it was all electric baseboard, like it was through the roof, right? There was no gas in the building. And when we went through the building, we realized that the way it was set up was so daisy-chained, like it was 1 meter at the base, right? Yeah. But then it would go up a stack, and then from the stack, that would have the electrical panel in it for the whole floor. Yeah, so and there was 15 units of floor.
So there'd be a lot of damage done to try and
you'd have to literally bust open every single wall and every single unit to try to put a panel in.
So it could be unfeasible to try and do that.
And it was, and that's what we figured out with that one, right? So likewise with sub-metering water.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, it's a great idea. We should always explore sub-metering water, but then where can we feasibly add those meters, right? Like if you just say, hey, I'm going to add it on every fixture, well, then you could have 10 a unit, right? One for the hot, one for the cold, bathroom, tub, kitchen.
I'm more leaning against that these days. Like I think because the bill back process is such a pain, calculating usage, going and check. Like
with the right company, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. So you can get a company and it connects to Wi-Fi and they'll read it, but there's also issues with that too. It's not perfect.
Nothing's perfect.
Yeah. Right. So what I like, and we've talked about this, cost recovery. Yep. So you still advertise the unit. So if this was me, I wouldn't say that utilities are included. I would not put the ad out there. I would, when they come in, I'd say, and this is your monthly fixed utility amount.
And we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and there's always a way to get around these things.
It's all how you pitch it, because you still advertise. You get them in on the low advertised price, and you say, hey, and since we don't have utility sub-meters, we're flat rate utilities here, and here's your utility amount. And if they don't like it, they can leave. But of course, they're going to know it's going to be reasonable. Like they're not going to get it any cheaper anywhere else. And the nice thing for you as the owner is you're only paying one account fee. On all of it, right? Because like the flat account fee on like natural gas is what, like $40?
Yeah, something like
38. And electric, you've got similar with the electric, or at least with your water meters, because each meter has a fixed. I think in London it's like $50 a month for the meter alone. So yeah, you can save some money there, build the cost recovery, and make it kind of a non-issue. The only thing it doesn't protect you against is a malicious tenant that just leaves the water on. Yeah, which I've never experienced. I did have one time where somebody seemingly filled up a pool. With the water, but that's only happened to me once.
No, and I've never like based from all my clients and from what I own, I've never had an issue with water. I've never had an astronomical water bill come in being like, what happened here, right? It's not. I've had clients that had leaks and they're like, hey, my water bill's higher this month consistently than previous. But anyhow, so there is ways to work around that.
So but just pointing out, like, we're starting with the issue of as far as the overall rent roll goes, like the revenue line is way too low on this building.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't even make sense. Like, they're not getting cost recovery on that stuff. And they're providing a lot of service. Like, they do garbage pickup. So there's $3,000 a year for a $250 a month garbage pickup that's built in. And then, they're providing utilities. Like, there is room to start billing these things back, but these tenants have got to know how good they got it.
Yeah.
So every building has a natural turnover.
Yep.
In a year, you're going to turn over some units, I would think. So it looks like these people have been there a long time based on these rents. So I would think some of them are due to leave in the near future. And it would make a lot of sense to see that, but there's no guarantee. So, Jake, going back to your question, could it make sense to do this deal? And they want $3 million, so that's what they've advertised it for. I took their expenses, which I think they were being pretty reasonable. Works out to be about a 3.6% cap rate that they want. So in today's day, do you want to spend a 3.6 cap on a building? Well, when the rents are that under where they should be, I'm willing to consider it because I see some upside. So looking at this, we've got a 75% loan to value. VTB is what the seller's willing to do. So I put 1,000-year amortization in here because they're seemingly willing to do interest only. 5-year term they're willing to give. And we're just kind of figuring, what interest rate do we sub this in at? So what would be reasonable? If we put it at a 3%, so, a favorable VTB, that leaves $3,400 a month in cash flow for the buyer. Yep. Now, the catch there is you got to come in with your down payment and land transfer, like you're looking at $800,000 in.
Yep.
So how is your cash on cash for that? It's not going to be monstrous. It looks like it's about 5%,
which is
not nothing.
That's actually target. That's I would say that for your standard investor, a 5% cash on cash is you're going in target, and you should be able to grow that to a 8% cash on cash. I do think and this is why this one's a bit of an interesting deal because you look at it on the surface and you go, no way, 3 cap. Kitchener,
3.6,
interest rates, not going to happen, doesn't work. Will the building appraise? I don't know. I'm not an appraiser. But then when you dive into the numbers, that VTB, all of a sudden you go, okay, hold on. It actually may work. Like 800 down.
Yeah.
That's not that bad for what you're buying here. Right?
Yeah. And then the question is,
you look at, you could go CMHC with it. And this is where the catch-22 is. You can go CMHC with it. They're probably going to give you like 50% loan to value on that thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, but what if you go, so if you, the way I see this one working, and it is work, but you go in and maybe you try and do the 3%. I mean, heck, you could, if you want to play like silly numbers, you could even look at it. Hey, what's it look like at 2? Yeah. And hey, that's $5,000 a month in cash flow. Yeah. So like there's ways to make cash flow here. And it seems like that's on the surface. Why would the seller offer that? Well, they know that that's probably what they need to offer to get this deal done.
Correct.
Because anybody's going to look at this and say, look at all these units. This is Ontario. Yeah. Like I mean, these people aren't going to want to leave. So it's going to take some time to turn those units.
Like my thought would be, okay, go in there and maybe we don't even negotiate price. Maybe we give them the price, hypothetically.
Yeah. And then take 5 years to slowly
give them a smaller VTB. So say, okay, 75%, but maybe we do 2 years instead of 5 years. And then you say, okay, 2 years, 1% interest or 2% interest, right? And then you can go raise that $800,000 down payment. Yeah. And you could probably it'd probably debt service.
With the 800
with your cash flow there, if you're 1 or 2% on the VTB.
Yeah, well, so let's just see. So what can you pay if you wanted to raise the other 25%? What can you pay them and still cash flow? It's worth looking at. So is it 10%? 10%. If you're 2% on the first, you're negative 900. So
there you go. Break even. Come on.
You're getting close. Let's say they do 1% on the first. I mean, this is all theoretical because we have no idea.
Guys, we haven't even spoken with the vendor about it. Like this.
It's just the point of having these conversations is a lot of people are sleeping on Ontario right now, and sellers kind of know that, so they're kind of sweetening the pot. Yeah. So if they are, conversations can be had. Now all things can be negotiated.
And Andrew, there's distress sales out there now.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's now, like, it's very true. People are distressed. People are selling stuff. And again, I want to say, I don't know if this building's a distress sale. I don't know what's going on in here. We're just talking shop. But the there are distress sales happening, and there is opportunity in Ontario right now, better
Yeah.
than we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's a great time to be offering in Ontario, and I've been on the fence with it for a bit. You know, I've been looking in Florida and stuff, and now I'm starting to see how everybody followed me, like looking at the U.S. Not necessarily following me, but they followed that path.
You inflated the U.S. market single-handedly, Andrew.
I do have an influence on the market, but I don't have that kind of influence in total.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of people are starting to realize U.S. is a great opportunity. Yeah. They're sleeping on Ontario, and this is why I think it's such an important time to look at Ontario.
Yeah, and the buyer pool's thinned out. People are hurting for capital. There's not as many buyers out there. So if you're still aggressively looking to purchase right now, like now's the time. I think this is the bottom of the pit.
Yeah.
Right. And the bottom's a bit long. Like, I'm not saying we have 2 weeks of bottom. Like, I think we're going to be 6 months of hurt here. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And, and that's the thing. Like, this might be a flash in the pan. Like, and people might look back at this time and say, man, I wish I'd done something when they were. And it's always like that. It was like that with the 2-week COVID shutdown or lockdown. Like the first little bit of it, when people were uncertain and the market paused, there were some great deals right then and there.
Yeah.
So just one thing I wanted to point out here is, like, there's nothing showing, because it's an interest-only first mortgage. I put it at a $5,000 amortization to show that there's no pay down. That was part of your return on most deals, right? So in this one, it shows that cash flow is your only return, but that's not really true. So I'm factoring
zero.
You're
look at active appreciation.
Because I don't have active appreciation in here, but you have the ability within a year. I mean, if you're saying, what's the market going to say? What's CMHC going to say the cap is over there? Ballpark. Like 4 3/4 or something, or 5?
Yeah, I'd say on an appraisal, well, it's not CMHC saying the cap. It's going to be the appraiser saying the cap. Right?
Well, CMHC will have their guideline.
They'll have their debt service guidelines, right? So they'll say
they publish articles with average caps. That's all I was saying. Yeah. So as an appraiser, that's a better way of saying it.
In that market right now, you're in the fours, right?
In the fours.
I don't want to go out and say, hey, high fours, low fours. Like, I think you're definitely in the fours.
Yeah.
It's a very stable market. It's a stable asset class. Like, that's something not to overlook here.
So,
I know, again, a lot of people are down on Ontario because of landlord and tenant issues and this and that. But
you just got to price that in.
At the end of the day, we are providing housing. Like, it's one commodity that I don't like. We have a crisis now. We're going to have a crisis next year. We're going to have a crisis the year after. There's more people coming into the country.
Yeah.
Like, my recommendation is don't go super high end housing right now. Right?
No.
Don't like. If you want to go buy new construction, high end, great.
Housing,
but this is what people should be buying, right?
Yeah.
Like, central locations, right? Middle of the road housing. I don't want, I wouldn't buy a slumlord building. I don't want to buy low income.
But you don't want super primo either.
But I don't want super primo. I want that, hey, I can't afford my mortgage anymore. I'm a young family. I'm whatever. I'm going to downsize, go rent for $2,500 a month.
Yeah, this is like really affordable compared to what I hear a lot of people paying for rent. So like at these rents, so let's just say you got quote unquote market here, which I think is a conservative market rent. That puts the cap at $3 million up to 6.9. So if an appraiser is going to say, hey, you're worth, you're worth more like a high fours, and that's hypothetical because we're not talking to an appraiser right now, you're going to be over $4 million in a high fours cap. So what would that be exactly? Let's see, 4.5 maybe? Whoops, 4, 5. Yeah, like 4.6 cap would be 4.5 million.
Yeah.
So that's the active appreciation, which is not factored in on my passive sort of turnkey spreadsheet here. So you kind of got to factor that in on your own. But I just wanted to share that while the return on its own, if you're coming in with cash for the down payment, it's just your cash on cash, which depending on what you negotiate with the seller could be anywhere from 5 to 15%. And that's assuming you're offering full pop. And you could offer less on the price too. But I think a lot of sellers know if they're willing to do something like this, VTB, now you could have people come in who can't even qualify with the bank. Maybe they're new to Canada or something, or there's some reason that they won't qualify.
Yeah.
Now it's on the table.
And touching on that, Andrew, like it's also important that anybody who's looking to secure a VTB like this, put your books in order. right?
Oh yeah, because they may want to see your net worth, they want to see your
Yep.
credit. I mean, if they're doing their due diligence, they'll still want to see that. So they're not going to be the bank because they're motivated to do a deal.
Yep.
But they're still going to be motivated to check out your credit.
What's your action plan, right? Sell yourself on the agreement. Explain how you're going to acquire, stabilize, turnover units and refi, and give the whole story. Yeah, and that's from my experience been the biggest factor to getting these VTBs done.
Yeah. Yes, you do have to sell yourself, present yourself as a professional. That goes for anyone. If you're interested in getting more established as a real estate investor, attracting partners, attracting people to sell you properties like this and give you terms, have a reputation, have something that they can go and look at to say, hey, this person's real.
Yep.
And I've been having that conversation a fair bit lately because a lot of people undervalue that completely. Like, think about me. If I want to go out and say, hey, I know my stuff in real estate, they can go back and find 5 years of podcasting.
Yeah.
They can find, me sharing stuff from 5 years ago. Start now. Don't wait, guys. Start now sharing your story. Okay, so if people want to learn more about this, we're going to include a link, Jake. It'll be your list so that people will somebody give them a call, or how does that work?
Yeah. So you go to the link below, sign up. We'll try our very best to connect with you within 24 hours of receiving your message.
Yeah.
You'll be either Shannon or Raza will reach out to you.
Yeah.
Both of them are going to have a brief conversation about what you're looking to do, why you called, what episode you came off of.
Yeah.
That gives us a bit of context, and then from there, I personally will reach out. We'll do a one-on-one, initiation call or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Where we dive into a little bit about the investor, what they're looking to do, and really why are we talking, kind of thing, right? And
awesome.
in a nice light way, and then from there, it's obviously no strings attached, no pressure. If we find that there's synergy, or we find that we can work with you, or you need education or coaching, then we just set another call up and start setting up those pipelines. So,
set up a plan.
Yeah, a bit of a process, but we're happy to talk with anybody. Yep.
Okay, well, if you made it this far, guys, the only way these shows grow is if you share it. Liking, subscribing, and doing all that stuff can help too, but the biggest thing you could do is just share this with somebody you think it could help. And
comment.
Yeah, comment below.
Yeah, we had a couple good comments from some posts we did. And some
yeah,
stuff
we're
like
sharing
that,
a lot of little snippets on Instagram. So if you're not following us there, check us out on Instagram at REI Hot Seat.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again next week.
Wonderful.